Hello everyone, and welcome to my reading recap where I go over the books that I read and just talk a little bit about them and my reviews of them. So I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in March. I read 6 books. Most of them were romance, but we had a little bit of different genres sprinkled in as well. So the first book that I read in March was The Love Hypothesis, which is a romance, if you can't tell by the title. I hadn't realized I had actually read something by this author before, which I also liked. So once I got into it, I was like, oh, I like this author. So I liked this one. It was a very cute story. It was like a grad student and a young professor at a university. And it's like a fake dating trope where they both start fake dating because they're like both getting something out of it and then they end up catching feelings. So if you like a fake dating situation, this will be a good one for you. Very cute, and it was like a very moderate level of spicy, so not too much if you're not into that. The next book that I read was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, which I'm so excited because I've been seeing that it's going to be a movie, so very excited for the movie. If you have watched any of my videos, you know that I'm obsessed with Kristen Hanna, so I was really excited to read this one because I know it's a really popular one of hers. Extremely sad story, as all of hers always are, but in a way that like just is beautiful and sticks with you. She does a really, really good job with her historical fiction because it really like sets the scene, and also I feel like it makes you understand things that happened during that time so much better. Like this one takes place during World War II, which obviously like I have some understanding of what happened during that time because of like history classes and things, but the topics that she brings up and the things that are so heartbreaking aren't necessarily the things that you would think about being really hard. So I just feel like she's an amazing author, and all of her books really just are so meaningful. So this one was no different. Really loved The Nightingale. She's always a 10 out of 10 for me. The next book that I read was called The Friend Zone, and this is also a contemporary romance by Abby Jimenez, who I know is very popular. Honestly, I don't really remember much about this book, which I guess goes to show that it didn't really stand out to me. Like, it was fine. I like romance, and it was an easy read, but nothing really stands out to me, so maybe a little beach read if it's available at the library, but I wouldn't go out of my way to reach for this one. The next one I read, I was really excited about. It's called Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is also a romance, but the storyline was really interesting to me. It's follows a character, sort of the stories happen side by side if she like decides, like pretty much she's at a bar one night and she runs into her ex, and one of the storylines follows if she decides to go like on a date with the ex that she runs into, and the other storyline follows if she decides not to go on the date. So it's sort of like these parallel stories happening of like based on the different choice that she could have made. So that was really cool. Once I heard that that was the plot, I was really interested to see how the writing would make that happen, and I really enjoyed it. Taylor Jenkins Reid is another author that I really love, so she did not disappoint with this one. It's a really cool idea, and I think that it worked out really well. It was done well, the writing, so I enjoyed this one. The next book that I read was Under the Whispering Door, which is a fantasy, queer fantasy, which is why I picked it up because that sounds perfect for me. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't my favorite. It was a little confusing for me. I feel like it dealt with like the fantasy world was a little bit confusing for me to figure out because there's like some characters that are dead but like their spirits are still around, and some characters that are living but can like communicate with the spirits, and sometimes it was confusing to remember like the rules and who was what and who can do what, like because like some of the like ghost spirit characters like couldn't hold objects or do this and that, but I feel like it just got a little confusing at some points. And I also feel that the like LGBTQ romance was not really a big piece of the plot. It was sort of just like a small underlying thing that was happening with one of the characters, which is fine, but I love romance, and I picked this up because I thought it was like a romantasy, like I thought romance was really a big part of the fantasy story, but it ended up not being so much. So wasn't my favorite, but it was interesting. I like standalone fantasy books that aren't part of a series, so I'll always try them. I feel like it's intimidating to like jump into an entire fantasy series, so I like when there's one-offs that I can find. So, you know, I'm not mad that I tried it. And then the last book that I read was the sequel, which I talked about the plot in my last video. So I read the sequel this month, which is the sequel to the plot, and I really enjoyed it. The plot was really interesting. Like the book, the plot, that's the first book of the series, was really interesting and just a really interesting story, I thought. So I was excited when I heard there was a sequel, the sequel, because I thought like the storyline was really interesting. So this was the same story but following a different character's point of view. Like it picks up where the last one ended. So I feel like it was fun to like jump back into the story and the same characters and like find out what happened once we left off with the other friends in the other books. So I really liked this one. I do feel like I like the first book better, but I like this one as well. I feel like sometimes sequels can be a little bit disappointing, but I think because it was like following a different character, it was interesting to get their perspective and find out what was happening with them. So I enjoyed this one. Those are all the books that I read, the 6 books I read in March. So let me know what you're reading, and I hope you check out some of these books if they sound interesting to you. See you next time.